Hello everybody, I think we can start. First of all, good morning, and I'd like to thank you for joining us in our third webinar on international cooperation organized by the International Service Facility with a particular focus this time on Africa. A few words about the host of this webinar. The International Service Facility has been contracted by the European Commission to provide support on Horizon 2020 to all national contact points to third countries, meaning non-European, non-associated countries. This webinar is also organized with a kind cooperation of two EU-funded projects, the Bio-Horizon and the NCPs Care. These are projects for the national contact point of two thematic priorities, namely the societal challenge 2 that relates to food security, sustainable agriculture and forestry, and the NCPs Care that relate to the climate action, environment and resource efficiency. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded and will be available together with the presentation slides from the National Contact Points Information Hub, which is the dedicated web space for NCPs. Before we move on, I would like to tell you that you can use the chat box which appears at the left corner of your screen to type questions anytime. We would like to address all the questions at the end of the webinar. However, if some of you is looking for some sort of clarification, we might decide to interrupt the speaker and address on the spot the questions. Just to give you a small overview of today's agenda. First of all, we will start with a general presentation on Horizon 2020 and how it is open to the entire world. My colleague Theodoros Staikos, the coordinator of the NCP unit, will be providing you information about participation modalities and applicable rules to participants from third countries. Then he will go on and give you some statistical information about the participation of Africa so far in Horizon 2020, and will elaborate more on the available opportunities in the work programs of 2020. Then we will get into more specific presentation and more specifically about the work program on food security, sustainable agriculture, forestry, maritime, inland water research and the bioeconomy. This is a very big thematic priority. We will explain to you how it is focused on Africa, and our expert speaker for today is Ms. Katerina Papadouli. She is the national contact point for this specific priority. Then Ms. Vayia Piteli, national contact point for climate action, environment, resource efficiency and raw materials, will be explained to you the work program for this priority, as well as how it relates to Africa. And then my colleague Theodoros Staikos will provide you information about the next framework program, Horizon Europe, and how it is open to the world, and of course including Africa. At the end of this webinar, we will be addressing the questions that you might have. In the meantime, don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat box. Before that, just for warm-up, we would like to ask you a couple of questions. We will run a poll, and we would like to ask you the following question. Have you ever applied for a European call targeting Africa? You can vote yes or no. Well, I see that the questions are split. 50% of you say yes, and the rest of you say no. Thank you very much for this. Now we have another question, which is more open-ended. It is typed at the chat box. What do you need to better perform your work as national contact point? We will give you a few minutes to type your answers. You can start writing your answers at the chat box. I can see a gentleman typing. Let's see. Okay, an initial reaction is that more information is needed about the co-funding mechanisms. I can see another gentleman typing. Let's see, let's wait a few seconds. Okay. Also, another response is that more information in a simplified way is needed. Well, I can't see anybody else writing, so thank you very much for your answers. And now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Theodoros.
Yes, hello, good morning from my side as well. Thanks a lot, Vassiliki, for the introduction and the moderation. Good morning, everyone. I think more or less we are on the same time zone, so it's good to say good morning. I will do the presentation, the first part of the presentation, and then the last part. And in the middle, we're going to have, as we saw in the agenda, the two colleagues that will present dedicated topics and calls on Africa. Before going into the presentation, before going into the discussion about what is Horizon 2020 and how you can participate, let's say a few things about. This is a service facility that has been contracted and is coordinated by the European Commission, and it's aimed to support all NCPs, especially in third countries, in partner countries. And the main goal of this service is to provide networking opportunities, of course, but also practical advice for your daily work as NCP. We organize a range of webinars. This is the third webinar that we do on international cooperation, and more will follow soon. We provide information for flagship events organized in Brussels and outside Brussels. We have a dedicated, this is quite important, we have a dedicated web space with all the information, relevant information, and you can see at the top, at the bottom, the link of the National Contact Point Information Hub. This is the horizoncp.eu. This is a dedicated web space you can join by using your credentials as an NCP, and you can find all range of information. And we provide regular news flashes with information about your daily work, about your participation, about upcoming events and opportunities for funding. So this is the overview. It was already presented by Vassiliki, so I will not spend time here. And then we move on. Speakers as well, they were introduced by Vassiliki. So we move on the first part of this presentation, which is the Horizon 2020 Open to the World part. This is more or less an introductory part to what comes later on in the presentation. It gives some information that most of you, most likely, you know already. So I will not spend much time here. Just an introduction to the next steps. So Horizon 2020, as you probably know, is the biggest actually research innovation program in the world, and it is the main framework program for supporting research and innovation from Europe, from European Union. It has a budget, an overall budget of around 80 billion euros, and most importantly for you, for people located outside Europe, is that it's open to the world. It welcomes researchers and institutions, public or private, from all over the world. And as we will see later, this aims to continue and even strengthen further in the next framework program that will follow. A few words about the INCO strategy, the International Co-operation strategy, as it's called. This is, it was adopted at the beginning of the program in 2012, and more or less gives the objectives of what Horizon 2020 will support in terms of international cooperation. The first group, and based on this identification, it also comes the possibilities either for automatic funding or not automatic funding. So these three categories are first the industrialized and emerging economies. These are developed countries like US, Canada, Australia, which are not receiving automatic funding from Horizon 2020, but under specific conditions. Then we have a second range of countries that belongs to the category of enlargement and neighborhood countries, which are automatic eligible for funding from Horizon 2020, either as an individual researcher, of course, but also in coordination, in cooperation projects. And then we have the developing countries, which are also eligible for funding. All of the countries of Africa belongs to the category that they are eligible automatically for funding. So legal entities based in Africa, they are automatically eligible for funding under Horizon 2020. What is important in this strategy, the international cooperation strategy, is that it has developed some targeted openings, some targeted topics and calls in order to support the international cooperation. These topics either indicate that participation of international partners is encouraged, as we will see later on with some example of topics and calls, or in some specific cases it actually states that participation of partners from certain countries, as we will see later on from Africa, for example, for the whole region, is not only encouraged but is even mandatory. These are the so-called targeted openings. These are coordinated calls, and this will be further reinforced. And based on this idea of the targeted openings, we have the development of the Horizon 2020 flagships on different areas, thematic areas, where we have the targeted activities on thematic areas based on the region. You can see here the whole range of activities across the globe. And as you can see, for Africa, for the Africa Union, we have identification under flagship of Horizon 2020 activities in certain thematic areas such as health, food and agriculture, energy, transport, climate action and migration, and even at the country level, for example, in South Africa, we have additional thematic areas targeted in flagship initiatives such as nanotechnology and marine. This is obvious. I will not spend much time here. Why should you participate as a legal entity or representative from a country outside Europe? Why you should come and join European partners? There are several reasons. Here we state some of the obvious, of course, to participate in ambitious research and innovation projects, to give you the opportunity to move to Europe for a certain period to work here, to get this experience, to access new networks and alliances, of course, to build new business opportunities, new networking, to have access to world-class research infrastructures, and all in all to support and help tackling global challenges together with European and international scientists. Let's move now to the second part, which is about the eligibility conditions for funding of international partners. As we already said, there is this categorization of countries based on the either automatically getting funded or not from the Horizon 2020. So on the part of the countries that, of course, they receive automatic funding from Horizon 2020, we have obviously the member states, we have the 16 associated countries that they have signed a memorandum of understanding with the European Commission, and they actually participate in Horizon 2020 as with the same rights as the member states. From Africa, we have only Tunisia right now belonging to this category of associated countries. And then we have all these countries listed in Annex A of the work program, which includes all African countries. And as we said earlier, these are not automatically eligible for funding from Horizon 2020. There are conditions, other conditions from other partnership countries, for example, cases of industrialized and emerging economies, but since this particular webinar is focused on African countries, I will not explain further on this. This was covered by the previous webinars. How you can participate, this is important in Horizon 2020. There are two ways to do it. You are either as an individual researcher, and there is no condition of nationality here, or if you join a collaborative project. And here we have the eligibility condition, the standard eligibility condition in Horizon 2020 projects, which says that at least we need to have at least 3 legal entities from 3 different countries, either member states or associated countries. And on top of that, we can have third countries from Africa, from Asia, from other regions. In terms of individual research opportunities, we have 2 main schemes, funding schemes. The first is the European Research Council, the so-called ERC, which provides funding and grants for excellent research. ERC, it's all about excellence, and there is no, again, conditions on nationality. And the second level of funding for individual researchers are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. There's a range of opportunities here. We have other grants or fellowships for doctoral students, for postdoctoral students, even mobility and grants research for not only for researchers but also for technical and administrative staff by using the funds under the RISE project, which belongs to Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And of course, these opportunities require that as a researcher, as an individual researcher, you need to move and work for a certain period of time in Europe, to base yourself in Europe. On the part of the legal entities, how you can collaborate and take part in collaborative projects, there are a range of opportunities here. As a legal entity based in Africa, you can take part in any type of project. You can receive, as we said, automatically funding, and you can even be a coordinator in the project. There are 3 pillars in Horizon 2020, the excellent science that we mentioned earlier. There's also industrial leadership and society challenges, range of opportunities to get involved. Just remember that there is the minimum eligibility condition that says 3 participants from EU member states and associated countries, and on top of that, we can have international partners involved as well. These are some specific topics that we try to identify on the work program that was recently published by the European Commission, the work program Horizon 2020 for the period 2018 to 2020. These are some topics specifically targeting African countries or open to all countries, but with a particular focus on Africa. Later on, my colleagues Katerina and Vayia will focus on the topics belonging to food and climate action and environment. I just put in the 3 slides all the topics that they are open from now until the end of 2020. And you can see the target country, you can see the topic, you can see the deadline. For example, in the first topic under the thematic area energy, we can see the topic is called bioclimatic approaches for improving energy performance in buildings in Africa and Europe. It's over here. You can see the target country. It's clearly African countries. The deadline is today, so it's, if you can manage until 5 o'clock Central European time to participate, you can do that. It's impossible, I'm joking. And eligibility conditions on top of the standard eligibility conditions that we have. On addition, it requires that at least one legal entity from Africa should be involved in this proposal. So we have an eligibility condition for this particular topic. And the same goes for the next one. As you can see here, the second one, it says it requires at least 5 legal entities established in Africa. So by looking at these 3 tables that I put here, you can see all the opportunities that either targeting Africa or targeting the globe, but with a particular focus on Africa. Quite interesting is this one, the last one, which belongs to inclusive and innovative societies. It's a topic called Center Networks of European Research on Innovation. So here we have targeting actually 2 regions. We have first Africa and then India. The deadline you can see is next year, 12th of March. So here there is no eligibility condition per se, as we saw earlier, but what the topic states is that projects should target at least 5 sub-Saharan African countries. So by looking at these conditions, you can identify the calls and topics that you can join. So where to find calls with international participation? These are well-known information, I hope. The area that you need to go is, of course, the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal, and then you just need to click on Horizon 2020, and you can either filter by the program part, or by the thematic area, or by even the cross-cutting priorities, for example, under international cooperation, or better, in my opinion, is to use the search facility. If you click on the home button in Funding and Tenders portal, you end up in this kind of searching environment, and then if you just click Africa or whatever you want to put, then you need to click, you can, if you want, to select to match the words only. And then, of course, you can sort the calls by either forthcoming, open, or closed. You can untick, for example, the closed topics, and then you have only the ones that are either open right now or forthcoming. You press search, and then you have all the number of topics identified. In this case, we have 11 results, and actually they are the 11 results that were presented earlier in my slides. Quite interesting is to see a relatively new service that the European Commission has developed. This is to visualize actually the participation of all participants in the world. So I will give you a demonstration now of what kind of information you can find for Africa by using the so-called dashboard in Horizon 2020. You can see the source down here of the dashboard. So here what I have done is I have selected the whole region of Africa, and the system, the tool gives me all the information related with the participation, with the EU contribution, with the participation of SMEs, as well as with participation by country, by institution, and by thematic area. For example, here we can see that we have, from the beginning of the program until today, we have 736 participations from Africa. Out of them, 410 are unique participants, with a EU net contribution of 136.4 million euros. And this is actually, as you can see here, represents something like 0.31% of the EU contribution of the whole Horizon 2020 up to now. We can see the participation of small and medium-sized enterprises. We have 42 participants, and they receive 6.32 million euros. Here, quite interesting is to see the participation by country. The largest, both in terms of participation and in terms of EU net contribution, is South Africa, as you can see here, but we have other countries as well mentioned in the graph. And on the bottom, you can see here the top participants and the top SME participants. You can see SME company on top from South Africa. So this tool is you can sort, of course, based on the partner type or based on the legal entity. You can find a range of other applications, a range of other information by using this tool. For example, you can see in which thematic areas African institutions are involved. For example, in this slide, you can see that we have the signed contracts of participants with Horizon 2020 projects, and then on the horizontal axis we have the EU contribution, and this shows the thematic priorities. You can see that in terms of number of grants, signed contracts, the majority, of course, is Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action. However, in terms of EU contribution, it's not that much. It's maybe close to 2.5 million euros. On the other side, we have projects related with health, which is something like 42 million euros EU net contribution, and something like 35 projects. So you can see a visualization of the participation of African countries. And these can go even more detailed at a country level. Just for your information, you can go at any country and you can have the same kind of analysis and visualization. For example, in this case in South Africa, we can see how many grants, how much EU contribution, which institution, which topics received funding, and from which thematic priority areas. So this is the first part of the presentation, of my presentation. I will now pass the floor again to the moderator to continue with the presentation from my colleague Katerina Papadouli on a specific calls and topics in the area of food. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Theodore. That was a very interesting presentation. Now we will move on with the presentation of my colleague Katerina Papadouli about the Societal Challenge 2. Katerina, you may take the floor.
So thank you all for joining. We will discuss together about some specific topics that are open in Societal Challenge 5, dealing with food security, sustainable agriculture, and forestry, maritime, inland water research, and the bioeconomy. So Societal Challenge 2 that are open for the last work program of Horizon 2020, the work program of 2018-2020. So the work program of 2018-2020 focuses on sustainable management of land and water to secure healthy food, as well as on the delivery of public goods such as biodiversity and clean water. It supports innovative food and marine industries, the bioeconomy, and dynamic rural areas. This specific work program is highly relevant to meeting the European commitments under the Sustainable Development Goals and the COP21 Paris Climate Agreement. The activities that are organized under Work Program 2018-2020 will help implement important EU policies and initiatives, such as the European Common Agricultural Policy and European Innovation Partnership for Agricultural Productivity and Sustainability, the European Union Bioeconomy Strategy, the Circular Economy Package, the European Union Integrated Maritime Policy, and the EU Common Fisheries Policy. So as I described to you, this is the policy framework behind which the work program of 2018-2020 has been developed and has been structured this way for different calls and topics that are open in this period. So as my colleague Theodore described earlier, we have 3 specific topics that will open in the next period, specifically in October 15 of 2019, and will run in 2020. As I said again, this call is the last call for Horizon Europe before we move to the next framework program. So going into more specificities on the topics that will be open. First, we have the SFS 35. SFS stands for Sustainable Food Security and is one of the calls under which Societal Challenge 2 is structured. SFS 35 is dealing with sustainable intensification in Africa, and the specific topic that will be open for 2020 focuses on vector-borne diseases in Africa. As my colleague said before, this is one of the topics that African participation is mandatory, and you need at least four participants. At least 5 participants from African countries. So this topic focuses on African and European agriculture, which share common challenges of moving towards more sustainable ways of agricultural production. Both regions aim to ensure food production and reduce the environmental impact of agricultural activities in the face of climate change. You see the specific topic focuses on vector-borne diseases that have increasing risk of spreading in also Africa, but also European areas. The proposal should aim to develop knowledge on selected vector-borne diseases affecting terrestrial livestock, whether they also affect humans or not. You can see some specificities of the topic here. Of course, this is a cross-cutting issue focusing on international cooperation. And you can see some requirements that you should keep in mind. For example, you should address one or more diseases. The priority of these diseases should be either if there is a serious impact in Africa or there is a serious risk of spreading to Europe. You can see which activities your proposal should cover. Of course, it is important to improve and strengthen epidemiological surveillance. So this is one of the focuses of the topic. You need to include capacity building and training activities. And of course, as you will see in most topics of Societal Challenge 2, you will need to build on results and experiences from previous topics, from previous projects. Specifically, this topic asks you to cluster with specific projects in SFS, Sustainable Food Security 33 from 2018, which focuses on supporting the implementation of the EU-Africa Research and Innovation Partnership on Food and Nutrition Security and Sustainable Agriculture. Finally, you need to address detection and control tools, including prevention, monitoring, and diagnostics, and the specific activities you can see under that. You can find the useful resources for this specific topic, the policy background documents, which is, as I mentioned before, the EU-Africa Research and Innovation Partnership on Food and Nutrition Security and Sustainable Agriculture, the report by the Task Force on Rural Africa, on the rural transformation EU cooperation with Africa, and also the links with the different projects that have been starting to be implemented, and you should cluster with during your project. Finally, you can see that this topic is research and innovation action, which means that activities should also focus on basic research activities, on activities gathering and collecting knowledge on these issues. The EU contribution will amount to up to 9 million euros, and the opening of the call is on the 15th of October. This specific topic is a two-stage proposal, which means that the first deadline is on the 22nd of January, where you are requested to submit a short proposal, and if it goes, if it is evaluated positively, then it will go through the second phase, the second stage, which the deadline is on the 8th of September of 2020. The whole topic will be funded with 12 million by the European Union, so almost around 2 projects will be funded overall. Moving on to the second topic that we will discuss today. This is the RUR 21-2020, focuses on rural renaissance. This is the topic identification, agricultural markets and international trade in the context of sustainability objectives. This is not a topic that is mandatory for African partners to participate, but it is recommended in the topic text. So the European Union remains a big supporter of the multilateral trading system. In spite of its success, the World Trade Organization is now facing new challenges in light of a rapidly changing world. The World Trade Organization can be further modernized by making its trade agenda closer to citizens and ensuring that trade contributes to the pursuit of broader objectives set by the global community, in particular with regard to sustainability. This specific topic will look in particular to relevant supply chains in the agricultural sector involved both in import and export for the European Union in relation to its major agricultural trade partners. So this is where African countries come in. At the same time, this topic urges you to link with another, with projects funded under another topic in a different co-bridge, which will bridge the work program of 2018-2020 to Horizon Europe, which is the Food and Natural Resources call, and the specific topic calls for sustainability of bio-based products, international governance aspects, and market uptake. You can see the different requirements to keep in mind. You are asked to develop methods and indicators, mainly to assess positive and negative impacts of international trade, specifically agriculture international trade, on the environment and the society. Of course, the context focuses on the European impact, but also because EU is looking to its major trading partners, this contrasting analysis can be proposed from African countries. So again, this is where the African partners can take place. You can see some of the expected impacts. The European Union wants to see more evidence-based policies, improved data, improved methods, more coherence between European Union policies on agriculture, environment, trade, climate, food security, and also they need to see and work on best practices and policies for multilateral trade that will contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals and contribute to sustainable agriculture. You can see the different specificities for this topic. This is also research and innovation action, focusing heavily again on research activities. The EU will contribute with up to 4 million euros for this topic. Also, this is a two-stage proposal. It will open on the 15th October of 2019. The first stage deadline will be on the 22nd of January, and the second stage for those who pass the evaluation of the first stage will be on the 8th of September on 2020. The overall funding will be 4 million for this topic, so it is expected that only one project will be funded. This is the final topic that will be open in the work program of 2018-2020 for Societal Challenge 2, and then it focuses on diversification of rural Africa. It has a topic identification in front of it. You can see the CE. It focuses on circular economy, which is a horizontal aspect across Horizon 2020 and is one of the priorities of the European Union moving towards a circular economy. This specific topic focuses on diversifying revenue in rural Africa through bio-based solutions. In many African regions, agriculture is predominantly subsistence-oriented, hence most farmers lack the means to invest on improving the productivity of their exploitation activities or to undertake basic transformation of their produce. Low productivity and lack of economic diversification makes farmers vulnerable to food insecurity and contribute to continuous migration towards urban areas, especially among the younger generations. The requirements that you need to keep in mind is the screening of bio-based technologies that can be adapted and transferred to rural African contexts. They need to be simple, robust, and local, sustainable and circular, and also it is important to come up with a variety of end products, not only focus on energy and fuels, but go further to high added value like raw materials and different type of end products. It is important to assure that these kind of solutions are integrated into existing systems such as residues or multi-cropping systems that can be replicated and that are tested and adapted. So you can see that it is important that sustainability assessments are made, practice guides and policy recommendations are made so that these results can be replicated, that stakeholders are collaborating from the beginning, that clustering is taking place, and also innovation capacity and scientific collaboration are increased. Again, this is, of course, one of the topics, as you can see from the title, that participation from African countries is mandatory. For this specific topic, proposals shall include at least 4 participants from a specific region of Africa as defined by the African Union, and in total a minimum of 5 participants from Africa. Here you can find some useful resources, the workshop on EU-Africa Research Innovation Partnership on Food and Nutrition Security. We had this link in the previous topic as well, and also the different insights on bioeconomy. Finally, the characteristics for this call are the following. Again, we're looking at the research and innovation action. The European Union will contribute with up to 9 million euros. The call again is a two-stage proposal. It will open on the 15th of October, and the first stage deadline is on the 22nd of January, and the second stage is on the 8th of September of 2020. The overall funding for the whole topic is 18 million euros, so at least 2 projects will be funded by the European Commission. So these were the 3 topics that will open the next period and will include African participations. We have prepared some data where you can see African countries and their participation in Societal Challenge 2 of Horizon 2020 since the beginning of the framework program from 2014 until today. You can see the participation per country. We have a total participation of 118 participants, and the largest participation comes from South Africa with 36 participants. Following is the slide of EU contribution per country. Again, this data is from the beginning of the framework program from 2014, and we're talking again EU contribution for topics in Societal Challenge 2. You can see that the total EU contribution to African countries is around 16.5 million euros, and again South Africa comes first with more than 5 million euros, followed by Kenya, Egypt, Ghana and Uganda. Finally, the European Union, in order to facilitate participation in Horizon 2020, because as you can see and as you know, it is quite a complex framework program. It has developed national contact points, as we are, as PRAXI network is, which gives information and guides participation to Horizon 2020 to potential applicants. Thematic networks of national contact points have been created in order to train national contact points better, but also to help clients, assist them in partner searches, organize brokerage events where applicants can join and find their partners and create consortia, organize webinars, and disseminate news. So BioHorizon is the network for the national contact points for Societal Challenge 2 and bioeconomy. This network has been running since the beginning of Horizon 2020 and has been organizing activities such as trainings, webinars, workshops, and brokerage events. We have participants from 34 different countries, from partner countries in BioHorizon project, from EU member states, from associated countries, and from third countries. We have participants from African countries, from Algeria, from Egypt, from Ethiopia, and Ghana, from national contact points from there, who have been actively participating in our activities. Finally, for each call for each year, the European Commission is organizing an information day where they present and describe and answer the questions for every topic that is open at the time or will open in the next period. And at the same time, the BioHorizon project organizes a brokerage event where applicants can come and can discuss about their project ideas and find relevant partners. Such an information day and brokerage event took place in Brussels on the 3rd and 4th of July, where all the topics for 2020 were presented. You can find all the sessions online. They were all web streamed, and this is the link below where you can find all the sessions and the discussion on the topics that are relevant to you. And this is from my side. Thank you very much. If there are no questions, I will give the floor again to my colleague Vassiliki.
Thank you, Katerina, for this. It was very informative. Now we will proceed to the next presentation, and we're going to find out more about opportunities for African participants in the work program of climate action, environment, resource efficiency, and raw materials. I would like now to give the floor to my colleague, Ms. Vayia Piteli, where she can share more information with you. Vayia, the floor is yours.
Hello. I hope that everybody can hear me clearly. I will present a few information about the Societal Challenge 5 work program with a focus in Africa. And I will try to be quick because we are a bit behind, and Theodoros and Katerina have already showed a general framework of of Horizon 2020 and the specific work programs for Africa. So before going to the specific topics, I would like to refer as well to the policy framework where the work program for Societal Challenge 5 climate action is built on. The two major contexts is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs as we say, and the Paris Agreement for Climate. On these two major contexts, the two main calls of the Societal Challenge 5 is are built, and there are also other global and European strategies, policies, which contribute to the structure of the work programs, and the work program try to contribute to these goals and to function in this framework. You can find references on these policies and strategies either in the description of each topic or the introduction of the work program. Some topics refer to specific SDGs by numbering them, or general to the SDGs. So the first topic that I would like to present to you belongs to the main call, greening the economy in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, in the part connecting economic and environmental gains, the circular economy. And it is the topic CESE5 25-2020, understanding the transition to a circular economy and its implications on the environment, economy and society. I have tried to decode a little bit the description of the topic, but please keep in mind that the official information day for Societal Challenge 5 is next week, and if you can't participate physically, you can still watch the presentations via web streaming. I will show you the relevant information later. So I would suggest that you will follow the specific presentations for these topics to understand better the content and the targets. There is always additional information in the presentations of the Commission. So for the topic 25, understanding the transition to a circular economy and its implications on the environment, economy and society, the specific challenge is the following. Understanding the transition to a circular economy and its positive and negative implications on the environment, economy and society will be important for the development and adoption of circular economy approaches, including the design of policy measures. The indication and analysis of best practices of the transition to a circular economy in or outside Europe on a citizen, business, sectorial and macroeconomic level, possibly covering different cooperation models, will serve as an inspiration for specific projects. While the scope includes several axes, the research will assess the current state of transition towards the circular economy in relevant economic sectors and analyze possible transition scenarios, appropriate models for analyzing and quantifying the various implications and trade-offs and assessing the sustainability of circular economy should be developed. The role of public awareness and acceptance and other social aspects, including gender issues, need to be under the scope of the topic. Go through all of them, but I would like you to pay attention to the part that is relevant to Africa. While in line with the strategy for EU international cooperation in research and innovation, international cooperation is encouraged, in particular with Africa. This is the part which implies which shows the connection with Africa and why participants from Africa should be included in proposals under this topic. Moreover, the topic is in support of the European strategy for plastics in a circular economy. So selected projects under this topic, as well as projects selected under other topics in Horizon 2020 supporting this specific strategy, are strongly encouraged to participate in joint activities as appropriate, and the proposals are expected to demonstrate support to common coordination and dissemination activities. There is always a part which describes the expected impact of the proposals for each topic, and you need to address each bullet and beyond. Here the most important things are that more systemic policy decisions to further facilitate the transition to a safe, environmentally friendly, efficient and effective circular economy in selected sectors, efficient and effective use of both primary and secondary resources in Europe, new business opportunities for European industries and SMEs, and other factors for the impact. To conclude for this specific topic, it is a research and innovation action, and proposals of 3 to 4 million are expected to cover the topic efficiently. Of course, this is not mandatory. It is a two-stage call. The submission is planned to open on 12th of November. And the deadline for the first stage is 13th of February 2020. If your proposal passes the first stage, then the second stage is next September next year. The second topic is under the other main call of the work program, building a low-carbon, climate-resilient future, climate action in support of the Paris Agreement and is under the part in the relations between climate change, biodiversity and ecosystem services. The topic is LCCLA 15/2020, Forest Fires Risk Reductions towards an integrated fire management approach in the EU. The specific challenge of the topic is the following. Forest fires are a major hazard in Mediterranean Europe and increasingly so in Central, Eastern and Northern European countries. Areas at risk from forest fires are projected to increase by 200% in Europe by the end of the 21st century, in particular due to climate change. Moreover, the development of urban areas in the vicinity of forest areas combined with a lack of risk awareness will increase the exposure and vulnerability of local communities. An integrated fire management strategy is necessary to ensure that wildfires risks are managed in such a way that people and housing safety, economic growth, well-being, carbon sinks, biodiversity and ecosystem services are maintained or increased. Again, the scope includes several aspects. Actions should generate the knowledge, tools, capacity and guidance to underpin an integrated fire management strategy. Proposals should assess the changes in fire regimes under various climate, vegetation and land use change scenarios. Proposals should capitalize on the existing and develop new scientific knowledge and strategic guidance for improved forest fire risk management, and goes on. Here, the relevance to Africa is the following, and specifically South Africa. Collaboration with leading research institutions with experience in extreme wildfire management, such as in Australia, Canada, South Africa, the United States and other non-EU countries, is highly encouraged. So the focus is on South Africa-based research institutions. Again, the impact is specifically required. National forest fires risk reduction strategy and risk-informed decision-making, improved coherence between EU policies, objectives and national legislative frameworks, defining the structural measures and operational activities regarding forest and communities protection from fire, more disaster-resilient communities through increased awareness and preparedness of populations at risk, and goes on. Well, to conclude on this topic, it is again a research and innovation action. The proposals could be around 10 million to address the topic effectively. It is again a two-stage goal. It is planned to open on 12th of November and the first stage deadline is 13th of February. The second stage deadline is next September. There is okay, moving forward to the other part of the presentation. If you want to have an idea for the participation in this section of Horizon 2020, you can use the Data Hub. It is an interactive tool that the European Commission and particularly EASME has developed. You can visit it by the link shown in this slide. There is an interactive map where you can find the projects funded under this section of Horizon 2020, and you can use the tools on the left side to see a list of projects, beneficiaries, funding of countries or regions. A few more data from eCorda for the participation of African countries to Societal Challenge 5. Again, as in Societal Challenge 2, the first country in participation is South Africa, and then on the second level is Kenya. There is a variety of countries among sub-Saharan countries or Mediterranean countries, African countries, which participate in this section of Horizon. And here is a table for the contribution per country for the funding. You can see again when the presentation is available. I would like to focus on this information now. As I said, the information day for the Societal Challenge 5 Climate Action is next week. It will be web streamed and you can participate, you can follow the presentations. The presentations are usually available after the information day and the recordings, so you can visit again the website to download and watch the recordings. To gain some more information on the specific topics, if you are interested to prepare a proposal. And there is also another networking opportunity on the 9th of October in Warsaw. It is a brokerage event organized by NCPs, CARE and other NCPs networks. You can still register. If you find it difficult to participate physically, you can go through the profiles of participants and see if there are possible partners for your proposal of for your clients to guide them and communicate with these persons. You can find more information and more networking opportunities under the NCP's CARE website. This is the project, the network of NCPs from Societal Challenge 5. You can also use the partner search tool. You can advise your clients to create a profile or even go through the collaboration opportunities which are uploaded on the partner search tool, and possibly they can find interesting collaboration opportunities there. Since it is a little bit difficult to find partners from African countries, it is advised to create a profile, a partnership profile. If you are based in Africa, I think that it will work fine for you to find partners. These are from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Vayia, and Katerina for the very good and detailed presentation on the goals and topics in the thematic areas of food and climate action environment. Now let's move to the final part of the webinar. We're going to talk very briefly about the next framework program, Horizon Europe, and then we're going to see some links for further information. Horizon Europe is discussions about Horizon Europe are still going on. Nothing has been settled yet. Horizon Europe will cover a period from 2021 up to 2027. And it has a proposed budget of around 100 billion euros, as it was published in last year in the proposal from the European Commission in June 2018. There are still some steps that needs to be followed in order to complete the process, and the expectation is around the second half of the next year to have the first calls to be published in the Funding and Opportunities Tender Portal, and then to have the next program from the 1st of January 2021 to start. There is an expectation that the international cooperation will be further strengthened to ensure effective tackling of global society challenges, as well as to open the international participation with further targeted actions and flagship initiatives. Just very briefly, one novelty, let's say, of the new Horizon Europe program is some kind of a further classification or categorization of countries, and the possibility, by using a new typology, the possibility of countries outside European Union, associate countries, neighborhood countries of European Union to be associated directly with the new program, and to have the same, of course, opportunities for participation in the new program. This is still ongoing. As you can see, it's the option D, and this will give the opportunity for third countries outside European Union and the neighborhood areas to associate themselves with a new program. Of course, there are certain criteria that need to be followed. For example, a good capacity in science, technology and innovation, a commitment to a rule-based open market economy, as well as an active promotion of policies to improve the economic and social well-being of citizens. This is the proposal from the Commission. It's still ongoing, the discussions, and will be finalized by the end of this year. And beginning of next year, we will have the complete set of information and the new calls coming. Few things about the information websites. Of course, as we mentioned at the beginning, you will receive the slides, so you will have all these links that you can follow. This is just a list of information that you can access in order to find detailed information about international cooperation, about the strategies, about international cooperation with certain countries, with agreements with certain countries, for example, with South Africa or with Tunisia, with Morocco, as well as with whole regions. This is another set of documents that gives a detailed information about the strategic approach, and as mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, quite important is the National Contact Points Information Hub. As you can see at the bottom, that you can find all the information needed. This is a list of the past events and webinars that were done as part of this service facility for international cooperation. This is the third seminar and webinar, and all these recorders can be found in the links as mentioned in the slide. Whom to contact? You can of course contact. You can find of course the list of national contact points in your countries or in other regions if you want to make a contact with this person, with the NCPs, but you can even directly contact the International Service Facility team on this mail, and of course through the dedicated National Contact Points Information Hub. And this is the end of the presentation. Just before conclude and see if we have any questions to answer, just to sum up the whole discussion today with some closing remarks, some highlights of the presentations that we gave you within the last hour, me and my colleagues. So Horizon 2020 is of course the largest research innovation program in the world. African nationals or institutions are eligible to take part in Horizon 2020 either as individual researchers or with participating in collaborative projects. Participants from Africa automatically receive funding from the European Union, and participation in such projects offers exciting opportunities to extend your research field, your network, as well as new career opportunities. As I said earlier, we don't have any particular question to answer. There was a poll at the beginning, and thank you very much for your participation about your needs and NCPs. It was identify a couple of things. We will pass this to the colleagues in the service facility that manage the contract, and of course, we'll make sure that you will receive, all of you, a link with a recording, of course, of this webinar, with the presentation slides, as well as I will kindly ask you to give us a feedback. You will receive very soon an email with a feedback form, and I will kindly ask you to complete this feedback form and pass it back to us in order to improve our services with these webinars via the service facility. So at this point, I would like to thank you very much again, and maybe pass the floor to Vassiliki to close the session. Thank you very much.
Well, before we close the session, I would like to relay some comments that I have received in the chat. One attendee says that, in my opinion, it's not difficult to get African partners. It's rather a problem of communication, and this is likely why Cameroon was not represented. Well, I think that relates to the initial comment that we received during the open-ended question, that what do you need to make your work better as NCPs. I don't know, Theodore, whether you would like to comment on this.
Right now, I don't have any answer on this. I mean, it's a complex question, and I would say that we will pass the message to the service facility, to the coordinators of the service facility, and of course to the European Commission. All these messages and feedback will receive from you, and I'm pretty sure that they will try to find a solution on this.
Well, thank you, Theodore. I can see somebody else typing a message. In the meantime, I hope that all of the attendees got a clearer idea of the opportunities for African participation, as well as the rules for participation. The most important thing is that the biggest framework program of the European Union is open to the entire world and is constantly trying to simplify the rules for participation. I would like to thank all of you for being here with us today, and also to our fellow colleagues who were the speakers of today. So, closing, again, a big thanks to all of you, and let's keep in touch. Thank you, and bye-bye.